Dallin Hanchett, welcome to the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast, man. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me hop on.
Doing well, doing well. Also, welcome to Alaska. You've been up here for about a year now.
We're getting close. In November, it'll be my year mark, so we're sitting about almost 10 months now.
Excellent. So, what's lived up to your expectations so far in the 10 months you've been here?
It's been a lot of working and COVID, so not been able to do too much, but we've gone out and got a little bit done. Definitely, I was always told that you can't take a bad picture in Alaska, and I'd say that's probably true. Everywhere, especially down here in Southeast, everything's just gorgeous.
Yeah, it's awesome. Once you get up to Juneau, the mountains come right down to the ocean. I'm down here in Ketchikan, and so it's a lot more almost got the Pacific extension of the Pacific Northwest feel, where you have not quite as extreme right backing up to the town, but pretty close. But you get to Juneau and the Lynn Canal area, man, like that's pretty extreme.
Oh yeah, quarter mile anyway. You're about to start climbing a mountain. It seems like.
Yeah. How'd you get hooked up with Juneau? Why'd you move up?
So I work with Sportsman's Warehouse. It's a company. We're based out of Utah. And one day I was just on my email, and there was a job opening for the hunting manager in the Juneau, Alaska Sportsman. So I talked with my wife. We just gotten married at that time. I think we were about 2 months married, so newlyweds. And I was just like, you know what, I should just apply for that. And she's like, sure, why not? And so I applied for it, thinking nothing's gonna come of it. It's Alaska. There's gonna be tons of people, internal, out and external, applying for that. And then 2 weeks later, I had a job offer, and a month later, we were packing everything up, shipping it up, driving to Washington, getting on a ferry.
Awesome. Yeah, I got up here just in time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, when they look at jobs in Alaska, you would think that everybody would be applying for them. I think there's a lot of people who just want to come up when it's nice. And some of that the darkness and the cold, it's not quite as it's not great. But you make it through there.
It's got its own allure for sure, but it's not like, everyone watches like, Meat Eater and stuff, and then they're like, oh gosh, Alaska. It's not that all the time, but it's pretty close.
Yeah. But there's a lot of things that you can hunt and fish during the whole year, and so you really don't have that off season where you have 2 months of, well, what am I going to do? So it's pretty. The weather will get really bad, but there's always something that you can do to get going. So,
yeah, I'm looking at getting into a duck boat so that I can stay busy during the winter and go knock some more ducks off my bucket list.
What was your primary or favorite hunting when you were down in Utah?
By far, archery elk hunting. That was honestly, I was hesitant to accept the job up here, just because moving away from family. But honestly, big thing was not being able to go and archery elk hunt every day. Because, going to where I killed my first bull in general season was, I was 45 minutes from the doorstep at work to get up there. And, I just love chasing bulls with my bow. And I was fortunate enough to actually draw my limited entry tag last year as a resident before I moved up here. And so I was able to burn all my points there. And Utah actually has a 5-year wait after you draw a limited entry permit. So I'll bum my 5 years up here doing some pretty cool hunts, I guess, and then start applying again.
Yeah. My girlfriend is getting her PhD in Laramie, and
oh, cool.
I went on an elk hunt with her last year, and it's just such a different. You have that great expanse, and you can drive anywhere, which is really sweet, really appealing.
I know. The funny thing that I've noticed since moving up here is I lived a half hour from Colorado, 45 minutes from Wyoming, and now that I live over 2,000 miles away, now I want to go hunt other states. But when I was in Utah, I had no desire to leave. It's kind of like, I'm here, I know this, and all I needed to do was buy tags.
Yeah. No place is perfect. If you start to think that Alaska is perfect or Wyoming, nowhere is perfect, because you can't have. It just doesn't work. If everywhere if some place had everything, then it would be extremely populated, like California. California 250 years ago was probably as close to perfect as you could get. That Central Valley area, because they had elk and they had bear and they had fish and they had everything. But, now it's been ruined because it was so great.
Yeah. Probably one of the only times that I've ever considered moving to California.
I lived there for a couple of years out of college when I was teaching, and it was fun to drive up to the Sierra Nevada and do some trout fishing with the fly rod. That was a lot of fun, but it was what it was. It was
Mm-hmm.
the best that you could do there, and you just think about the good old days. And I drew a deer tag, and they issued like 20,000 tags in that area. I'm thinking, this is insane. It was one of those 2-weekend seasons, and it felt dangerous to be up there because there's people at every turn, and there's no way you can get away from people. Up here, you pretty much go in any direction, you're in your hunting, which is nice. The accessibility is there, but man, it was.
Yeah, that's going to be definitely a different aspect for me too, because in Utah, I definitely like to go in further and deeper than most guys did. I wasn't really too much of a road hunter, which is very much a popular thing. I think in a lot of the lower 48, but specifically in Utah general season hunting. And but even if you were walking in, 5-6 miles in, there was still a chance that you were going to bump into a guy, and, you kind of just had to shrug it off and, well, at least he's out here getting it done just like I am. And just keep going and hunting. And that resulted in a lot of pressure. And same thing with the rifle hunts, which I steered clear of, because it becomes a pumpkin patch opening weekend. You look over a ridge and there's orange here, there's orange here, there's orange here, and did that my first year, and we had bullets whizzing over our head, and I was like, all right, yep, I'm sticking to the archery seasons.
Yeah, it's being out there, and just that isolation is great. You kind of feel that oneness. You can kind of immerse yourself but if you're worried about other people, or you hike in, once you get past this certain point, now you're walking toward another road on the backside there. So here you can get really away from that. Have you done much hiking around and planning, or get a program together for the deer season?
So I've done a little bit. It's been really tough with working and COVID. It's unfortunately there's been some people who've not showed up to work, so we've been taking a lot more on my plate as far as work's concerned. So I've not really been able to do too much. We've done a little bit of hiking around here. I've really been tuning into a lot of my e-scouting to kind of figure out what areas I'm wanting to potentially go and, just pick a trail and start hiking. And I'm going to try to August 1st, is when season starts here. And I'm actually going to finish up the finishing touches on my bow today after we hop off this, and make sure that I've got that dialed in. And I'm going to go try to hike up high and get up to, the tree line and stuff, and whip out my optics and try to locate some, a buck. I'm still non-resident, so I unfortunately still get to pay non-resident prices. So it's not really going to be much of just a meat hunt for me until I hit residency. It's going to be looking for, a mature buck before I try to punch my tag, but just going to kind of look out some things on my base map app and kind of figure out where I want to locate it and hit it from there. My shape's probably not the best that it should be right now, so I've been kind of putting on a pack and doing a little bit of hiking, but definitely could have done a little bit more forward planning on that one.
Yeah, the e-scouting thing is so crucial. All those guys talk about e-scouting here. It's nice that you can get out and see those areas. You don't have to drive too far to get there, but everything is so thick and super steep, and it's hard to kind of see where things are. So it's nice to actually, everyone talks about boots on the ground too. Like you can e-scout it and get a general idea, but until you see it, it's different. I think up here, that's really important because it can look really awesome, but it can be, something else.
Yeah, you couldn't walk 10 feet once you actually see it,
Yeah. Yeah, it should be fun. What do you shoot bow wise?
So I picked up a Matthews VXR. I've kind of always been a Matthews guy since I really started. Last year I went and tried. I was shooting an Elite, and that's what I took my bow with last year. Which can't really say anything bad about those Elite bows. I actually really liked them, but true to heart, I'm a Matthews guy. I love how they shoot, and so I picked up a VXR, and like I said, I'm going to finish up the last little bit today as far as my tuning. I'm going to make sure that everything's shooting good, and then go make sure that I can get my sight tape dialed in.
Yeah, I shoot an Elite, and I've only taken one deer with my bow, but it's the same. The gear is so great that it doesn't really matter if you're, some people prefer Matthews. It's not necessarily that Matthews is better than everything else. Same thing with like packs. You could go Cafaro, you could go Stone Glacier. Like, you're at that elite level. It's just preference at that point.
Absolutely.
So it's funny when people get really, I'm a Stone Glacier guy. Like, that's great, man. That's awesome. It's all preference at this point. Not necessarily better than anything else, but.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
I get that way a little bit with like my buddies, because I'm just, throwing jabs there where you're like, well, you're shooting a PSE, haha, I'm shooting a Matthews, but that's all just fun and games, because like you're saying, it's all elite gear once you get to a certain level, and it's Ford, Chevy, and it's Dodge. You know that your option is the right option, but your buddy knows his is the right option too.
Yeah. If someone was going to come into your store and is looking to start into archery hunting, what would be some of the things that you would recommend? Like one or two things that you'd recommend someone's going to start archery hunting. What do you say to them?
So we get that a lot, actually. I didn't think that archery would be a huge thing down here in Southeast, but I mean, not quite every day, but it seems like every day I've got someone coming in asking almost those exact questions. Is really the big thing is I like to not to restrain someone to a budget, but I flat out ask them how much they're willing to spend, because as you and I both know, you can spend, I mean, cheap, that to get into your very beginner stuff, you're still dropping $500 or $600, which most people think that they can come in and, $200 or $300. And I'm like, yeah, there's your bow. You still got to put stuff on it. But I mean, or you get into the level of, these elites, Matthews, the Hoyts, and you're starting off $1,000 bare bow. And I mean, on any given guy that's out there with the top of the line stuff, he could have $2,100 into his whole setup with arrows, broadheads, everything. So I really like to kind of ask people what their budget is, and then I ask them how devout they are to sticking to that budget, and then can kind of help them from there. Because like I said, most guys walk in, well, I want to spend $300 or $400, which is great. I mean, everyone's got to start somewhere. But that really gets you into just the basics of stuff. And then kind of that, once you hop into that, I think that's more to where you're just deciding if you like archery or not. Because I've seen guys that'll drop $1,500 on a bow, and the next year they try to sell it for $1,500 because they hate archery, and then they end up, selling it for $400. So definitely finding a budget, and then finding something within that budget that you would like to actually invest your money into, because not everyone can drop an absurd amount of money on gear, but definitely value what you buy.
Yeah. I've been fly fishing for a lot longer than I've been shooting archery. And once you buy a starter rod, and then you figure out what it is that you want out of the rod, and it kind of matches
Mm-hmm.
your casting style, so you can figure that sort of stuff out. So if someone who isn't really sure about making that jump from maybe a starter type bow to a more higher price one, but what are some of the things that if you go up in price, what are you getting as far as components or as far as performance? What are you looking for when you make that jump?
So a kind of a comparison that I like to make for just about anything, whether it's rifles or optics or bows, whenever you're getting into that, let's say beginner and then into the experts or professional series gear, is I like to break it down and say they're both like a vehicle. You know, you might have a Volkswagen Beetle, which we'll call the beginner, and then you've got a Ferrari at the top end, which, you know, you consider professional. Does everyone need to have a Ferrari? No. Should everyone? Yeah. Well, you know, why not? If you know how to drive it and you know what what to look for. They're both going to get you from A to B. But what are you looking for in the drive? You know, you're looking for good handling, you know, good acceleration, or whatever you might look for. It's the same thing with a bow. You're looking, when I'm looking for a potential bow for me to buy, or, you know, to get my wife, I just got her into it, is, you know, when you're drawing the bow, how's the draw cycle feel? And I mean, you throw that out there and people are like, the what? So, you know, how does the bow feel as you're drawing it? When you get to that peak point where you're pulling back all of that weight, was it smooth getting to that point? And then does it get a little hard and then cam over and then feels really good? Or is it just tough the whole way through? I'm very specific on my bows. I like to have a bow that's like a dead in the hand feel. And by that, I mean, when I shoot, I don't want my bow to move. You know, I don't like vibrations at all. And so I typically will go with a heavier bow. And so I'm fine cutting weight in my pack somewhere to where I can have, you know, I'm shooting a 31.5-inch axle, which people up here in Southeast are like, well, why aren't you shooting, you know, these little whitetail 28-inch axles? So I look for stuff like that. How's my back wall? Is my back wall spongy? Can I feel like I want to pull through it? Is it when I draw back that I feel like I'm hitting a brick wall? You know, and then you got to kind of find your preference of what you prefer, because there's not a right or a wrong answer. It's all in how you want to shoot. Once you start getting into those higher end bows, they're going to be easier to tune. You're going to enjoy shooting it more. Unfortunately, it's usually going to mean you're going to buy more arrows, because you're probably going to get better shot. And, you know, if you shoot more than 3 shots at 20, you're probably going to end up breaking your arrows. But I know plenty of guys that have dropped $300 or $400 into a used bow, and they've been using it for 6 years, and they're killing, you know, just as many animals as me. So it's not the gear that makes it. It is the practicing, but the gear definitely can help you along the way.
Yeah. Even like your lower end is way better than whatever they had 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Not like you're exactly slumming it, but yeah, I've noticed in my transition between I said it was like a PSE starter bow, and then the Elite. It's just those things that just the comfort, the things that you don't really know to ask about until you've shot for a while, and you think, oh, the difference here. I equate the fly rod thing too. It's, you know, you can buy a really expensive rod that's a light action rod, and you don't figure out that actually what I want is I want a little bit more length on my rod, and I want it to be an 8-weight, and I want it to be a faster action rod so I can cast things differently. You don't really know until you start what it is that you're looking for. And so sometimes that can be expensive, but those are some good things to look for.
Absolutely. And sometimes when I'm talking to people too, I ask them, I was like, do you want me to point these things out that you're looking for, or do you want to just enjoy what you have? Because once you realize what you're looking for, and you're going to notice that every single time you pick up your bow or you look through these optics, you know, those are going to be the first things you start to notice if we start getting into the really nitty gritty details. And a lot of people will actually say, nope, I like it as is right now. Don't tell me what I'm missing out on.
Yeah. That happened to me the first time I cast a premium fly rod, and the first time I looked through some premium optics. I just had a $60 pair of binos. It was on a mountain goat hunt, just to write an article about it and help pack some meat. And we were looking at a goat from 500 yards away. I'm looking through my binoculars, and it's just like a white speck, you know?
Yeah.
And I looked through, I my buddy had a pair of Vortex, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. It's so clean and so crisp. And then through the spotting scope, and they're looking through the spotting scope and like, oh, is that thing 10.5? What is it? I'm thinking, dude, how are you guessing about, the difference between a 9.5 and a 10.5? That are we going elite level here, or is it just like a nice Billy? I thought, this is insane. But if those sort of things are what you're looking at, you need a good pair of optics.
Oh, absolutely. There's just in general, whenever I'm helping a buddy or helping a customer or whatever, there's two things that I say when you're hunting that you definitely need to take care of, and that is your feet and your eyes. So that's have good optics and have good boots.
Yeah. What kind of boots do you run?
So I'm running the Kenetrek hard scrabbles right now. I need to get a pair of the Mountain Extremes for up here so I don't hold my ankle when I'm trying to climb mountains. But I've been running Kenetreks for about 4 years now, and I don't have any desire to really try anything else because they kind of fit everything, check all my boxes.
Oh, man, I went through 2 pairs of Danners. I really liked the Danners, but I just thought that maybe they broke down a little bit too fast. And so I went to a pair of Loas, and they just wouldn't really break in. And so they were just not comfortable with my feet. And I thought, man, if I liked the Danners, why did I go to something else?
Yeah.
I ended up spending like $150 more. And then, so I went back to the Danners, and shoot, man, I like them. They work. They might be a little less, but they're comfortable. They work with the feet. A buddy of mine had a Kufaru pack, and then he switched to, I think it was he switched packs, and he got it, and he was like, I'm not totally sure. Sent it back, and then got another Kufaru, and he's like, dude, I don't know why I almost switched. If what you have works, stay with that same brand.
So yeah, I like that you bring that point up, because I find myself, I've done that a couple times, but I definitely am kind of, I wouldn't say pig-headed in my ways, but I've found what I like, and I like it. And I've got one buddy that's constantly, we're discussing gear, and he very much, what he had last year isn't what he has this year. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you've got to do to find what you like, do it. But, I see a lot of guys that are gear hopping for no apparent reason other than, they might get on Instagram and they might see their favorite influencer endorsing this product. When they're on the other hand, influencer B is also doing this product and they're wanting to try them both, but they've tried A for 3 years and they love it. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to hop. Not that it's wrong, but, I've definitely found kind of the little groove that I'm in with the gear that I'm running, and I'm loving it so far. And I don't understand how you can gear hop every other year, but
yeah, you can even stay within the same brand, but then get the new pattern.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, like that. If you have the money, I guess go ahead and do whatever. But there were a whole bunch of people when the Subalpine came out for Sitka, they were selling the old. Was it Open Country or whatever it was?
Yep. You hop on Facebook. There's Open Country systems everywhere, and I want the new pattern.
Whole thing, man. It's, again, if you can do it, then that's great. But man, it doesn't make up for. Same thing with archery, with rifle hunting, whatever. It doesn't make up for the fact that if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. The animals don't respect you or look at you and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm just going to lay down for this guy because he's got all the gear," or gal. But man, it's crazy. The only reason I went with Stone Glacier as far as a pack was that a buddy of mine was selling his, and I was able to try it on. I was kind of hesitant about, ordering something, but I was able to try it on, and so I'm a Stone Glacier guy now just because that was the only one that was close enough I could try on, and I'm totally fine with it. And I have Sitka gear because it was available, and that's just what you run with, and that's. I think.
What are you talking about? Up here in Alaska, it's Sitka versus Kuiu all the way, man.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. and you have, like you were talking earlier, where you have this you kind of rib your buddies because they have this or that. My buddy has a Kufaru pack. I got Stone Glacier, whatever. It's no big deal. But there are some people who, maybe have nothing better to do, and so they do bring up those sort of things. And it's like, I don't know. But
sometimes it's let's leave it on the mountain and see who, gets out there and gets it done,
Yeah. I think during the off season, we get distracted by a lot of those sort of things, and we start arguing about packs and gear, and then like ordering gear or buying gear is our way of kind of staying in the outdoor field, even though we're inside, because we can't really do anything. It's our way to. I used to walk when I lived in California. I used to just walk around the Bass Pro Shops as like part of my Sunday routine. It's not getting outside. It's not doing really anything, but you are around outdoor gear. So somewhere in the brain, it does kind of make a click. And I like walking around Sportsman's warehouses too. It's just, I just want to, be around it, be immersed by it. And so sometimes, we kind of do that when it's not necessarily helpful. Buying gear is just buying gear. It's not being outside.
Yeah. And a big thing too is a lot of these guys are, buying this gear and they're not doing any forward planning with it. You buy this pack and, it doesn't get weighed down until you're going on a 7-day backpacking trip, not doing your due diligence to actually know if this gear is going to work for you, because not everything's going to work for every person. I run a Mr. Ranch pack. I could be like, hey, Jeff, try this. And you could absolutely hate how it rides. And I could take your Stone Glacier and I could not really enjoy how the waist belt feels or something, but that doesn't mean that the gear isn't good, but do your due diligence and know your gear is probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I could give anyone. It'll allow you to be out longer, hunt harder, and go further.
Yeah. I don't really trust gear reviews online because it seems like they fall into a couple categories. There's the person who's so excited about having their review shared by the company that they'll say something like, oh, just got out of the box and I love it. You haven't worn it. You don't even know what's going on.
I see that all the time. Yes.
I don't like this. It doesn't fit well. Well, a large is a large, right? And so, but it doesn't mean that it's going to fit you exactly. Like I fit a large because I'm thin, but I have a longer torso. So sometimes, it's not quite long enough for me, but they didn't have me in mind necessarily when they were building it. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. So some of these people who are writing these reviews, oh, it didn't fit well at all. It was terrible. Like, what do you want? Right. It's a large or an XL. It could be, you need the XL width, but you need the large length, and how are they supposed to figure that out? So you can really look through a lot of those and say, okay, this person didn't know what they were doing, or user error. And it's hard to trust those things.
I love to see the reviews that have the first initial review out of the box. And it's usually, oh, this is great, yada, yada. And then you see the edited a year later and it says, edit this, either I still love it, this is awesome, or yeah, I had that for 3 months, it broke and I got rid of it.
Yeah. It's I paid a lot of money for this, and so I'm going to validate that purchase by saying that it's awesome, because I'm going to get that seed planted in my face that I didn't waste some money here. But
yeah, absolutely.
That's the same thing with your influencers. Watch these guys on, Meat Eater or Randy Newberg, whatever, and it just proves that everything works, right? Well, I'm going to go with Randy Newberg because he's the man, so I'm going to get Gerber knives. Well, dude, Gerber knives, Havalon, whatever, right? And as a sponsor, what else are they going to say?
Yeah.
So like having that frame of reference that, okay, well, Steve Ranella runs Stone Glacier now. That doesn't mean that what he ran before sucks. It just means that, all right, there's a lot of stuff out there. Just make your decision.
Yeah. And it's a business too, I'm going to say if I have a product, I'm going to want to give that product or pay someone to use that product who's in, on I guess on a pedestal to people, like this is a professional, this is someone who they're the expert, they know it, and of course I'm going to want them to use my gear. It's not to say that my gear is the best or the worst and that other people's isn't good, but if it works for them, then great. I see a lot of people who walk in with Meat Eater t-shirts and they're wearing First Light, and it's like, awesome, they are obviously fans of the show and they like the gear, cool. But I see guys with Meat Eater shirts with Sitka gear on. Doesn't mean that, like, oh, since so-and-so has this, I have to do this. We mix and match gear all the time through me and my hunting buddies. And it's finally, I've converted everyone over to Sitka. We got rid of the Kuiu and the First Light. So we're on the light side now.
Yeah,
but
that's good. I picked up a couple, I have some Sitka stuff primarily. And then I picked up some First Light. And then I like the Stone Glacier gear has been pretty nice. Their pants are pretty good. It seems
I've been debating if I want to go to solids or not and try some solid gear, but I've not jumped into it yet.
Yeah, they just seem like they advertise themselves as being a small and nimble, and it seems like they've been doing a lot of research first rather than just flooding. Hey, we're doing packs and we're going to do T-shirts, camo, everything. They're just like, hey, we'll put out a pair of pants.
Yeah,
We'll,
yeah. The
put
camo
out,
can come later. Make a good
yeah,
product.
yeah. So
I've been really looking into their tents. That's one thing that I need to get since being up here is a better backcountry tent. I've really been looking into I think it's their Sky. I've been looking into that.
Man. Well, if you look at what they've done with the packs, and the packs are good, again, even if you don't run one, you're like, okay, that's a pretty good reputation that they have here.
Mhm.
And if they're taking a long time to develop this tent, then maybe there's some science behind it. There's some, rather just throw a tent out in the market. So a buddy of mine has it, and I'm pretty excited to look at it. I have an old North Face tent that works. It's toward the end maybe of its career within a year or two, or we'll see how it handles the rain. But it's starting to get there. So I'm starting to maybe think that I'm going to be in the market for a new tent.
Yeah, and so going off of that, how much forward planning do you have? That your gear is not going to last forever as much as we all want it to. I bet you're already looking into options for tents. You're texting your buddies. You're stopping into your Sportsman's Warehouse or Bass Pro Shop, and you're going through and trying to figure out what gear I need before my gear. Do I want to go with the same North Face tent? Do I want to get a new one? Definitely a little bit more forward planning, and kind of really planning helps a lot on hunts. I've learned that hand over foot.
Yeah.
Definitely knowing it.
Having a little bit of overlap, I think, is important, because if you wait until the tent is totally out and you're mid-season, and we have an outdoor store here, but we don't have a Sportsman's Warehouse, Ketchikan being 12,000 people. So there's going to be a little bit of delay. And okay, if this jacks up, then I'm going to be out a week, and I want to go this week, but the tent failed this last week, and so I hope I get my new tent in here, because who knows? I broke one of the stays in my Stone Glacier pack. And I let them know, and they sent the new stays out, and I got them during the week. So it was like a Monday they sent it, and I got it for the next week hunt. I was stoked because, it's a great pack, but if it's broken, it's not really going to work. So it was
Those
nice.
ship times are bad up here too, man. You order something, it could be a month before you ever see it.
You track it to Anchorage, and then
it gets stuck there for a week and a half.
Yeah, some sort of whatever that they have to do, or like, oh my gosh. Or the first step when it goes like Montana to Memphis, like, oh boy.
It's amazing how fast it can get across the country, but then when it hits, interior Alaska, how it's, that's when it stops. That's when it gets slow. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah. What are some other things that you've noticed about living here that's just kind of maybe an adjustment? And granted, it has been COVID time, so it's not like you're enjoying all the local restaurants, but what are some other things that you've noticed has been kind of a transition for lifestyle?
So really a big thing would be, as we kind of touched on in the winter, the 4 hours of light. That was a big thing, because we got here in November, which was arguably the worst time to move here as far as weather goes. And you go to work and it's almost pitch black, and you leave work and it's still almost pitch black. That was definitely a transition. The people are definitely a little different. It's got its own little niche up here, and everyone, I would say it's almost like everyone runs on island time, just like if you were go to Hawaii and stuff. It's a lot more laid back. And it's kind of like, we'll get to it when we get to it. That's definitely something that I never would have realized. And Juneau specifically it's a different place, and you don't really understand it until you're here.
Mm-hmm. Southeast Alaska is interesting because they're all separated. You can't drive between them. Down south, you can drive through, and every town is essentially the same. There might be a little bit of a different, here's your local barbecue place, which isn't that different than the other local barbecue place or whatever, but you have really different like city histories and little cultural differences between these towns. You go to Sitka, and it's got those strong Russian roots, and so a lot of that's there, and the native culture is pretty vibrant there. Ketchikan, same thing. Whereas Juneau, it's definitely some cultural stuff there, but then more of a gold rush type history. And so you have these individual identities, which is pretty interesting when you go to visit these different towns.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out a little bit more. COVID's kind of put a damper on a lot of that, but I'm excited to get to some of these other, more remote southeast areas, and then I'm excited to get up into the interior and stuff. Hopefully next year when I can get on some hunts up there.
Yeah. Have you bought a boat yet?
No, I've actually been looking. It's funny that you asked that, because that's almost a requisite up here. I quickly learned, I've actually got a guy who got an old boat that's sat outside of his house for 6 years, and it's got weeds growing all over it and stuff, and he's told me to come look at it, and he says if I think it's worth $500, I can give him $500, but and at least get me out. I just want to be able to I'm a big duck hunter, and I really just want to be able to throw some long lines off, and I just want to shoot sea ducks. Everyone looks at me weird when I say I want to shoot sea ducks up here, because they're like, what do you mean you don't want to shoot the puddlers and the mallards? I'm like, I've been shooting those my whole life. I'm ready to shoot some. I was able to get out once last year, and holy cow, was that fun. It was almost easy, but it was so fun just shooting sea ducks off a boat. Yeah,
the boats you got to have one, or at some point you can say, or you can justify not having one because you have friends that do have boats, but you do also want to move on your own account. If you feel like going out, you're not at the mercy of someone inviting you out. But buying a boat can be, you're essentially buying the motor. If you have a good motor on it, that's what you're looking for. Older boat, fiberglass, aluminum, you can go back and forth on that. But if you're buying a boat with it's got 1,200 hours on it, like, okay, what and how much money do you want to invest? You want the brand new boat that you're going to be paying for a lot? Do you want something that's just gets you out, something you can camp on? There's no perfect boat, but it's you gotta have access to one.
Yeah, I need one that gets me to where I can drop crab pots, where I can hunt ducks, and then on a good day I can get over to Admiralty Island over here, because here in the spring I'm gonna try to go take my first brown bear, hopefully with my bow.
Excellent. There's so much, man. I grew up on Prince of Wales Island, and I've been back here for 7 years, and I just have barely scratched the surface of just southeast. And then you start adding in the interior, man. There's just so much to do here. It's crazy.
Yeah, and most guys that I get buddies who message me on Instagram or text me or whatnot. They're like, "Hey, why haven't you done any hunts yet?" And I'm just like, "Well, here, I can't just go up, and hunt the Brooks Range whenever I want. That's the equivalent of driving from California, or flying from California to whatever, a middle state like Tennessee or something. It's like it's not just hopping over to the state bordering to you. It's not just driving 3 hours. It's like you might as well be almost going across into another country, it seems like.
Yeah. The nice thing about Alaska too is that while there are those epic opportunities, there's just a lot of day-to-day type stuff once season starts. Like something is always in season, and during July when nothing really you can hunt, but there's fish that you can catch, and there's always you can have a great routine of fishing and hunting and never go to the interior. You go to the interior, but your program of black bear and deer and brown bear and fish, man, and crab and ducks, man, that's a pretty good program.
Yeah, it's a hefty take, if you're trying to hunt every single one of them every year. Like I'd love to get up and go. My dream hunt is to take a Dall sheep, and that's what I'm hoping for next year if everything lines out the way I'm hoping. But say you want to do a Dall sheep hunt and a moose hunt and a brown bear hunt and a goat hunt, the big four that everyone always thinks of, or let's throw caribou in there for an instant. That is a lot of time off from work. That is a lot of money. It's a lot of airplane travel. It's not. I've always considered Alaska to be, kind of the Super Bowl for, the outdoorsman. But there's so much to, you could be here a lifetime, and I don't think you could scratch the surface.
Yeah. Well, that's the important thing about getting set with some good gear and then running with that. Because if you're spending $500 to $700 turning over all your gear every year, man, that's a ticket. all those guys talk about spend money on experiences, not just gear. Once you're set with a good set of gear, then spend money on those tickets. Make that trip happen to somewhere else. You can have that experience. If you're just buying gear, man, you're taking away from your travel budget.
Absolutely. I started to really, really realize that once I probably, last year, as I was actually getting ready to move up here, I started really like, okay, so I've honed in my gear. I've got just about everything that I need, and then some. Where next? Where to next is kind of, that's what I want to always be, looking for. What tag can I get, and what budget do I need to make this year so I can get there next year?
Sweet. Well, any closing thoughts about moving up here? Impressions, plan for the deer hunt this weekend?
Just kind of, if you're planning on moving to Alaska, just do it. Worst comes to worst, you move back to wherever you're from. But no, I definitely have enjoyed it. My wife's enjoyed it. I'm kind of going to get her into hunting as we're up here, so she's going to get to experience Alaska firsthand as a greenhorn to hunting and all of that. And she's going to try to come out with me this in the next coming weeks. We just picked up a new rifle, going to make sure that's, dialed in, and she's going to try to go out there with me, and we're just going to, just go have fun. That's a big thing that I just got to remember when hunting. It's just the experience. Go have fun. If you don't notch your tag, it's a bummer, but
yeah.
So we're just going to go out and see what we can do.
Perfect, man. Well, thanks a lot for taking some time out of your Monday morning here. And
of course.
Good luck this weekend.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.